Hey guys, I'm Jordy, and this is your guide to the massive fiery spider, Beth'Tilac, the Red Widow. Now, Beth'Tilac is located on the west side of Firelands, behind a long, winding path of trash, but you can actually go around all of these mobs should you choose to do so, using some clever jumps that I won't spoil here. She's hanging from this giant fiery spider web, where you'll fight her both up top and below on the ground, and features a litany of additional spider ads that you'll have to deal with. Now, Beth'Tilac is a two-phase fight, the first with waves of spiders, and the second a no-holds-barred burn phase, as you race to get her down before she overwhelms you with raid-wide damage. As far as raid composition goes, you're looking at 2 tanks, 5 healers, and a standard mix of ranged and melee DPS. 3 hunters and 2 mages will help a lot here. I'll explain why later, but any normal mix will do. We'll split this guide up into each phase, so let's start with phase 1. First, Beth herself. Upon aggroing her, she'll climb up her web and start spraying the raid with the ability Venom Rain, dealing lots of fire damage on the raid that you'll need to heal through briefly until someone enters melee range with her. In order to do this, you'll see a bunch of Cinderweb spinners descend from above on filaments of web that you'll want to taunt and quickly kill. More on that when we get to her ads. Players can right-click the webs that the spinners used and climb up them to appear topside in front of Beth. It's important that the first player to use this is a tank, as Beth will turn and attack whoever is first up there, so make sure it's someone who can take the hit, quickly followed by your healers. About a dozen of these will spawn in this first minute, but you're really only looking to send up between 8 and 10 people. Any more and you'll struggle dealing with the spiders down below. I'd recommend your main tank, a disc priest, and a holy paladin, and then at least 1 mage with ice block and any melee you can afford, as melee are much less effective on the spiders beneath. On our kill, we used shadow priests, Ellie shamans, rogues, and mages, but I think DKs and warriors would work great as well. Alright, so once up top, the raid will begin to DPS Beth, watching her energy bar as it fills up. Fireballs will rain from the sky and create patches of fire and holes in the web, so avoid them if you see them. You don't want to drop down until you're ready. She'll do periodic raid-wide damage, so spot heal these people and keep the raid up. After about 90 seconds, her energy bar will fill up, and she'll begin casting Smoldering Devastation, killing anyone still on the web. So once you see the cast bar, begin to run to the center of the web and drop down. Then, stack in the center of the room to take advantage of AoE heals. Once the devastation goes out, she'll start casting Venom Rain again until someone arrives back up top. Now there's some tech here to prevent this damage from going out that I'll explain in the walkthrough in depth, but this mechanic can be avoided if done correctly. Once a new wave of spinners appears, the cycle repeats. We do this 3 times until Beth gets frustrated and she joins the raid down below for phase 2. Okay, that's phase 1 topside. Let's talk about the people on the ground. Spiders spawn throughout phase 1 in 3 different areas, shown here, and we mark each side and assign people to handle their lanes. Each lane should have 1 hunter ideally, as well as a healer assigned, and then ranged DPS also assigned to handle things as they arrive. There are 4 types of spiders. We'll go in order of most dangerous to least dangerous. First, the Cinderweb spinners. These are the guys I mentioned earlier that dangle from above and must be prioritized in order to give your topside people easy access to a ride, as well as because they randomly target people and hit them with burning acid, dealing a lot of fire damage. These can and should be taunted by any player on the ground, so taunt them to get them off their filaments and quickly burn them down. Next, the Engorged Broodlings. These little guys act like zerglings and run towards players and explode when they reach them. We assign hunters here to intercept them on their path to the raid and pop them safely outside of the center stack. Hunters can deterrence these too to prevent the damage. They also drop pools of burning blood on the ground when they die, so be sure you're not standing in that. 1 hunter in each lane is great, but any player can pop them if they see them heading toward the raid, so make sure to get them before they arrive. Next, the Cinderweb Spiderlings. These are little spiders that can quickly overwhelm the raid if not dealt with, and will jump at players applying a dot that must be healed through. Additionally, if they reach the Cinderweb drones that I'll talk about in a second, they will heal them, increasing their damage and movement speed, so avoid this. Finally, the Cinderweb drones. These guys are what your off tank should grab when they spawn. They're the largest spiders on the ground and should be easily visible. They have a cone attack that can hit the raid, so face them away from the middle of the room, and any leftover melee should focus it while the range deal with the other spider adds. The drones will also fixate on random players, chasing them for 10 seconds. If you see a drone coming at you, kite it away, ask for a bop, anything to prevent that extra damage taken. Just be careful not to cone the raid as you're running away. Now this is a frantic phase of fighting waves of adds and keeping them under control while your guys topside fight Beth, then stacking during the Venom Rain while still keeping an eye on any spiders remaining. You'll do this 3 times before phase 2, so get comfortable with your lanes and communicate any issues. Alright, that's phase 1 and the abilities, let's get into the walkthrough. On pole, we have the main tank run and taunt Beth. We noticed that sometimes she would attack players on the ground from up top, so we stayed back a bit as a raid until the spiders started spawning, which seemed like a bug, but it was no big deal. Once the spinners start descending, the raid rushes in, taunting them and quickly killing them. The tank uses 1 web, followed by the 2 healers, and then the remaining DPS, while the team on the ground sets up in their lanes, protecting the healers and the melee DPS in the center. Remember, kill prio is spinners, engorged broodlings, then spiderlings, and finally drones. After about 90 seconds, Beth will begin casting Smoldering Devastation. Okay, let's talk about that sweet tech. One quirk on this fight is that the Venom Rain that she casts only happens when no one is on the web up top with her, otherwise she'll just focus on that player. With some skillful play, a mage is actually able to survive on the web throughout the Smoldering Devastation and kite Beth around until the topside group can return and pick her back up. First, a split second before the Smoldering Devastation cast begins, the mage will Ice Block. Right as Ice Block is about to expire, the mage can cast Mirror Image and then immediately Invis, running away from Beth as she's distracted by the images. If done correctly, and with a well-timed Cauterize proc, the mage should survive long enough with Beth running after them until the tank can return and play continues. This prevents the extra Venom Rain damage from hitting the raid and saves your healers precious mana because they will need it for phase 2. Shout out to Agora for the footage, thanks man. Okay, so round 2 begins. We continue just as before, getting webs on the ground, the topside team's back in position, and the ad team down below is killing the ads. It's critical that the hunters drop slowing traps, ideally with entrapment, in each of the lanes to help slow down the ads as they rush toward the raid, and pop those engorged broodlings before they hit anyone not prepared for it. Another Smoldering Devastation 90 seconds later, and this time a second mage up top will do the Wombo combo, surviving up top until the raid returns, and we have a third set of ads and burning Beth. Finally, mercifully, Beth will give up after the third Smoldering Devastation cast, descending from her web and beginning phase 2. Now let's talk about phase 2. It's a no-holds-barred burn phase as you race to kill her before she builds too many stacks of Frenzy, increasing her damage by 5% every 5 seconds or so. Complicating this is every 6 seconds Beth casts Ember Flare, dealing a ton of raid-wide damage, increasing as the Frenzy stacks go up. We'll talk about how to deal with this in a second, but just know it's a race to finish her off before you're overwhelmed with damage. In addition to this, she has a couple other things going on. About every 30 seconds, she'll hit her current target with Widow's Kiss, a ramping, healing, taken reduction debuff that requires you to swap tanks. Additionally, the Widow's Kiss debuff will deal exploding fire damage to anyone nearby, so the tanks should be a few yards from each other to avoid that splash from going out. Finally, if there are any leftover spiders as she phases and they reach Beth, she will eat them, healing for 10% of each spider eaten. This is critically important to avoid, so clean up the room ASAP before stacking up, and make sure any last minute spiders that spawn don't surprise you. Alright, let's see how this plays out. As we phase, the raid should be mostly stacked in the center of the room, with the hunters and any extra range DPS looking closely around the room to clean up any leftover spiders. Occasionally, one can spawn at the last minute behind the tank, so watch it and deal with it before it reaches her. A few seconds in, the first Ember Flare will go out. Damage at this point isn't too dangerous, but pretty quickly things will get out of hand. So we're going to set up a string of raid cooldowns to deal with these flares to ensure the healers can keep up. We start at around 14 stacks, but as you get more gear, you can probably go later. You're looking to line up cooldowns like Paladin Aura Mastery, DK's AMZ, Disc Priest Barrier and Hymn, Warrior Rallying Cry, Shaman Spirit Link Totem, Druid Tranquility, really anything that can keep the raid healthy as the raid rushes to kill her. We pop Bloodlust at 35% for maximum damage during execute range and to help the healers as the damage increases. Ideally, you've got her dead at about 30 stacks, or you'll find she'll overwhelm you, so pump hard and take her down. Congratulations. Alright, let's talk about some tank tips. For the tank up top, you can tank her near the center of the web and just move her a tiny bit as you avoid the fireballs falling from the sky. Taking her here helps people jump down when they need to and not have to race across the web to do it. Additionally, you'll find you take a lot of damage from Beth up here, so don't be afraid to pop cooldowns. You've only got 2 healers and they're pretty busy, so help them out. For the tank down below, grab those drones and watch that they don't cone the raid. And during phase 2, as her damage ramps up, you'll be taking considerable hits from Beth, so roll cooldowns to help your healers as the fight progresses. And make sure to call for your other tank to taunt when you get Widow's Kiss on you. The healing reduction makes it much harder to tank. For the healers, this is a crazy fight with a pretty weird damage profile. It's super spiky in phase 1 and then a massive AoE fiesta in phase 2. So make sure that you guys know what your jobs are and stick to them and line up those cooldowns for phase 2. Overlapping them can lead to a lot of overhealing that will ruin your time later in the phase, so be organized. And for the DPS, it's super important to stick to your job and deal with the ads on the ground correctly. Stick to your lane. Prio is spinners, then broodlings, then spiderlings, then drones. And don't forget to avoid the patches of burning blood on the ground. That's extra damage the healers can't handle. Alright, and that's it for Beth'Tilac. If you're looking for help lining up your cooldowns or assignments for this fight, I've got a full featured assignment sheet over on my Patreon that will do this all for you. Head on over in the link below to check it out. And if you enjoyed this guide, please don't forget to like and hit the subscribe button. If you haven't, I swear it's helpful and it means a lot to me. Thank you. All right, that's it for me. Thanks so much, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.